Okay, this video is going to discuss the passing of an argument from one method to another, which you're going to see here why it's so important. So we're going to give you some words and things that you need to make sure that you know and understand. And so let's say we have a class here, and in the main method you have, which I should probably highlight. So we have the main method here. That's not what I wanted. Which is right here. And the main method, of course, is the one that starts the program. So it starts out having declaring the variable my pet, and then putting the word cat inside of it. So you have a variable named memory location that has the word cat in it, and then it calls the pet speak method, which we've learned how to do. And so it's going to invoke this method, call this to action like the MC called up the people to speak. And so the method begins, and it starts by declaring a variable called favepet over here, and it puts dog in it. Now the purpose of this program is what you'll see in the next statement. The print statement says my and favepet is better than your my pet. And so the idea here is that you have to know that this is a variable call. So right here, this is a variable call. You have to know what that is. A variable call is going to call this variable and find out what its value is. And whatever its value is, it'll replace the name of the variable with that word. It returns the value of that variable to here. Okay, so again, make sure that you know what a variable call is. And so the next thing, then you have literal strings here, and then it's going to call my pet. Now the only my pet that's been declared is been right here. Alright, so now here's the problem. I'm going to compile this and see what happens. And so what we get here is we get a message down here. It says for line 16 is the issue, and line 16 of course is right here, and it says it cannot find symbol. So it cannot find, it says here it can't find my pet. So it's looking for my pet. And so you look at this and say, well, why can't it find my pet? It's right there. And so here's the problem. The problem is that is this statement right here. And this is what you need to make sure you know. Only local variables can be called. Only local variables can be called. For example, the main method can only call variables that have been declared in the main method. The variables, the pet speak can only call variables that have been declared within the pet speak method. And so here's the issue. The locality of a variable is determined by the block of code in which it was declared. For example, the local variables of the main method are the variables that have been declared in the main method. Well, what's been declared in the main method? My pet. So this is local right here. This is local to the main method. And then the PetSpeak, the local variables for PetSpeak would be favepet, and that's the only variable that's been declared. So favepet is local to PetSpeak. So when PetSpeak called favepet, that was fine because favepet is local. But the problem is that PetSpeak trying to call myPet is trying to call a variable that is not local to it. It's out of scope, so to speak. It is not local, so you cannot do long distance calls, so to speak, when you have a variable call. So this is something that cannot be done because this method is the locality of it is determined by its boundary, and this boundary here is set up by these braces. And so the only thing that's been declared within these braces is favepet. So it cannot call myPet because it's not local to it. So you are going to have to be able to list local variables. You need to be able to recognize local variables. And you also need to be able to list variables that are being called. And indicate when they are being called. Alright, so now how do we make this work then? So the idea is this program needs to be able to make the comparison between the favepet and myPet. And so how does it do that? It's going to give something to the main method is going to give something to the PetSpeak method to give it a chance to do that. So the example that I've used in class is, let's say I ask a student, so here's me, I ask a student, and so here we'll go a student, to erase the board. So what the task of that student is going to be is to erase the board. Alright, so I go student, will you please erase the board? And by the way, I have an eraser. So I do, she doesn't. Me, I'm the main method, I have an eraser, just like myPet has cat. And then a method call, I'm asking the student to erase the board. So I go, so student, erase the board. Well, the problem is that the student can't erase the board because they don't have an eraser. And so I have to give the student the eraser. And then the student can receive the eraser. And then now that the student has the eraser, which I could put over here. Now the student has the eraser, and now the student can erase the board. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. So how's this going to work? Well, with variables, what's going to happen is we are going to have to pass an argument. And so what we're going to do here is when we have the pet speak, what we want to do in order to for this line to print this statement, the value of my pet, which is cat, has to be available to the method pet speak. So it has to be local. Right now it's not local because it's in the main method over here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to type in here my pet. So this right here is an argument. So you need to know what an argument is. And so this will be something you'll want to write down on notes somehow, is that you have, this is an argument. An argument then is going to be passed, just like I gave the receiver to the student, this is going to be passed to the method, the called method. So this is an argument. It gets passed to the other method. And so you have to know, it's hard to write with this thing, you have to know then how you need to know what it means to pass an argument. And then you also need to know that the parameter receives the argument. And so what happens is in here we need to have a place set up to receive that argument. And so what we do is this method has to declare a variable. When you declare a variable, you have to have the data type, and cat is a string. And then just to keep it simple, we're going to call it my pet right here. So this my pet is actually a method, is a variable call. It's calling the value of my pet. And since it's pass, or since it's cat, so this actually calls this method. It says, what's your value? It's cat. And so cat is passed to here. Now this, when this method gets invoked, the very first thing it does is it sets up a memory location. So remember, this is a parameter. And the first thing it does when it gets invoked is it sets up a memory location, which we're going to call my pet. And it stores the argument that was passed from the other method. So my pet passes cat and puts it in this memory location here. So what happens then is when we come down to this line of code right here and it calls my pet, it can only look in here. It can only look in the blues, because these are the only variables that have been declared. These are the only ones that are local to pet speak. And so it finds my pet in here. It doesn't find this my pet, it finds this my pet. And so now fave pet is called, and it's dog. And then my pet is called, the local my pet is called, and so its value is cat. It returns a cat. And so now the program will then print my dog is better than your cat. And so that accomplishes the purpose of this program. So you need to know then that you need to know what a parameter is. And so this is the parameter right here. Whoops, right here is the parameter. This is we call it a parameter variable. And you need to know that a method, when a method is called, the first thing it does is set up memory locations for its parameters. And stores the past arguments. This is not that complicated. It's very simple. Passes cat to here, the main method then then the PetSpeak method sets up the parameter variable and then stores the past value into it, and then it can be called right here. Alright, so that is it, I think, and now you should be able to do the assignment that I'm going to give you to respond or to practice these concepts.